Hi, welcome to the channel. Today's video is titled, How Did the English Colonize America? Hmm, interesting. We are going to check this video together, and I will love your thoughts and your contribution in the comments below. Let's dive right in.
The history of the colonization of North America is one of the most well-known formations of any country across the
Yes.
globe. Spain, France, and Great Britain all played crucial roles in the development of what is now the influential United States of America. But today, most people particularly remember the colonial efforts of the English above all else. So, how did the English colonize America? To understand how, it first behooves us to understand why.
Okay,
Well,
why?
a few factors were significant in determining the reason for England's colonial efforts. A summary of these justifications can be found in the 1584 work of Richard Hakluyt, known as the Discourse on Western Planning. Hakluyt claims that English colonization of the New World would be not only to the benefit of England, but furthermore to the benefit of God. He made a common argument that Protestant England needed to rescue North America from the Catholic world and the current hold that Spain had over much of the continent. Of course, England and Spain had more than just a religious rivalry, but the point was often a compelling one nonetheless. Furthermore, Hakluyt acknowledged the obvious economic and social possibilities that New World colonies would provide. Since there was currently an overabundance of job and landless vagabonds plaguing England, Hakluyt stated that the establishment of a colony would provide more land and job opportunities for these homeless men and women.
Oh, land, job, and opportunities. They saw land, jobs, and opportunities. Did they lie? Did they lie? I mean, America we know today, the United States of America we know today. People still say the American dream, right? Home of opportunities, land, jobs.
Moreover, the expansion of trade alone would produce great profit for England, and the resources the New World may provide were vast. These points made by Richard Hakluyt were echoed throughout England, and combined with the visible success of the Spanish beginning to produce envy from the English, a decision to enter the New World was made.
Wow.
Queen Elizabeth had chosen to opt for a less typical route of joining the colonial world by sponsoring sailors known as sea dogs that participated in a form of piracy identified as privateering. Two such sailors by the names of John Hawkins and Francis Drake were sent by the Queen to wreak havoc on the Spanish in America. The privateers, and the latter in particular, plundered Spanish ships and raided caravans even as far as the coast of Peru. This unprompted attack greatly angered Spain, and the discord between the nations drastically increased even further after England had the Catholic Mary, Queen of Scots, executed in 1587. The following year, King Philip II of Spain decided to retaliate in what would become the largest-scale invasion to yet occur with the goal of annihilating the British Navy, and boasted 18,000 soldiers, 8,000 sailors, and 130 ships. The Spaniards made no mistake in targeting the British Navy, which played an extremely crucial role in the nation's trade and colonial power. While the Spanish ships notably outnumbered the British, the latter were better equipped with more suitable ships for such a clash and quickly beat back their attacker. The Spanish fleet had to turn back, heading for the Netherlands to gather reinforcements, but an unexpected storm ripped through the remaining Armada ships, leaving the English as the clear victors. Now, it was time to focus on the colonies. As the 16th century came to a close, some attempts had already been made by England to establish colonies in North America, but so far, none had succeeded. Sir Humphrey Gilbert was one of the men in charge of such efforts and had hoped to create a colony in Newfoundland, but had miserably failed. John White, in 1587, had also made a similar attempt on Roanoke Island alongside 150 other English colonists, but the colony quickly ran out of supplies and resources. White returned to England, where he intended only to gather what he needed for his colony before heading back, but he ended up trapped in his native land for over a year due to the current situation brought about by the Spanish Armada. When
Trapped?
what he needed for his colony before heading back, but he ended up trapped in his native land for over a year due to the current situation brought about by the Spanish Armada. When White was finally able to return to Roanoke Island, he found his colony completely abandoned and his efforts in vain.
In vain! Trapped for a year?
When the 17th century began, with still no solid English colony in the Americas, Queen Elizabeth passed away in 1603, leaving the future of England's colonial efforts in the hands of King James. The following year, peace was made between England and Spain, and in 1606, King James established the Virginia Company, beginning a new wave of efforts to find colonial success in America. 3 ships, in particular the
Wait, did you say England and Spain? But I can see Scotland there. Why am I saying Scotland? England and Spain. England and Scotland, right? Because
efforts.
I also wanted to make correction to that, but I sort of like, let me hold on. Maybe it was talking about, but England and Scotland. I think that was what he meant, right? I'm believing that was what he meant. Let me take it back. I mean, I'm talking about the narrator.
When the 17th century began, with still no solid English colony in the Americas, Queen Elizabeth passed away in 1603, leaving the future of England's colonial efforts in the hands of King James. The following year, peace was made between England and Spain, and in 1606, King James established the Virginia Company, beginning a new wave of efforts to find colonial success in America. 3 ships, in particular the Discovery, the Susan Constant, and the Godspeed, set off for the East Coast. Arriving at the James River in spring of 1607, the colonists reached the fairly uninhabited region of Virginia, which they would shortly name Jamestown. This would become the first permanent English colony in America. Contemporarily, King James had also granted a charter to the Plymouth Company, but their Popham colony was disappointingly short-lived. The Jamestown colonists did fare better than those from Popham, given that their colony didn't collapse, but the endeavor was still a harrowing one nonetheless. By 1617, only 351 of the initial 17,000 colonists remained alive.
Wow.
The men had been widely unprepared for the life of hard physical labor, and the land itself was not as easy to utilize as they had hoped. Many starved, while others fell ill, and if it had not been for the help of the local Native American tribe, known by the colonists as the Powhatan Confederacy, the English may have all but perished. Powhatan's roughly 10,000-strong tribe was incredibly efficient at utilizing the difficult terrain for hunting and farming throughout the Chesapeake. With more than enough food and potentially benefit to gain from the colonists' manufactured food, the natives were fairly welcoming and greatly assisted the sickly Englishmen in their first winter. In the
You see? You see? You see? It was these same Native Americans or the natives that helped. You see?
natives were fairly welcoming and greatly
They were
assisted the
welcoming.
sickly Englishmen in their first winter. In the years to come, though, matters were not so simple. The English continued to starve and perish from disease, even despite help from the natives, as 400 new settlers arrived in Jamestown in
400 new.
1609. As the general well-being of the colony continued on a downward spiral, the relationship with the natives also began to deteriorate. Occasional guerrilla wars started to break out between the colonists and Powhatan's tribe, and the English were still starving. The fate
Wow.
of Jamestown seemed scarcely hopeful. No major improvement appeared until 1614, at which point the daughter of Powhatan, Pocahontas, married an English colonist by the name of John Rolfe. This, at least, began to ease tensions between the English and natives. The young colony also started to see some new changes and leadership, and the discovery of what would be their savior, tobacco. The Jamestown colonists were rescued by a boom in demand, being native to the New World and immensely popular from the start of its first exports to Europe. Within 40 years, the Jamestown exports were amassing £15 million per year. The colony
15
had
million
suddenly
pounds.
gone from a dwindling, starving group of migrants to a rapidly growing colonial power in need of more men for the increasing number of jobs the new market was providing. As Jamestown's success kept building, the colonists began expanding the English territory beyond its original borders.
Let me say this. If you notice, if you're quite conversant with history as a whole, you would understand that England, Great Britain played a vital role in the formation of the entire of many nations, which is quite interesting, right? It is quite noble and interesting, and I find that, like, I don't know, there's a word. It's supposed to be noble, right? That's quite an achievement. Do you know, like, vital role in the formation of many nations today? Quite an achievement.
Which unfortunately brought them back into conflict with the natives. Powhatan's brother succeeded the chief upon his death in 1622 and vowed to rid his land of the English. On March 22nd, 1622, he and his tribe attacked the colony and massacred 347 colonists in a single day. This, however, in the minds of the English, justified years of fierce brutality. The new method of how the English would continue to colonize America was vastly different than how their competition, both the French and Spanish, had done the same. For the English, they had received a bit of practice to sharpen the skills they would use in America, back when they had begun their efforts to take Ireland from the native Catholics. As the English decided that they no longer needed to put much effort into coexisting or assimilating the natives into their new colonies, they began utilizing violence against the native people to seize their land and take control. And between war and disease, it wasn't long before the Native Americans had been disastrously affected. There was also a building distinction in the eyes of the colonists between themselves and other peoples, which made them even more determined to establish an English dominance throughout North America. And as their positive view of the natives quickly decayed, the pre-existing supremacy of English Protestantism over the Spanish Catholics in the minds of the former had now stretched beyond religion, and they had the power to enforce these ideas. The English also had the power and means to establish more colonies with even greater success than they had so far achieved. Eventually, Virginia, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Connecticut, South Carolina, North Carolina, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and lastly Georgia would make up the English 13 colonies,
13
which would
colonies.
later form the United States of
Of
America.
America.
If it had not been for the newfound tobacco industry in the original colony, it's likely that the English would have never been able to colonize North America permanently.
This just reminded me of something. There was a particular video where saw um the the gold rush, the California gold rush, right? What if in their in the- as the settlers came into the land, the American land, or the land per se, right? And while they were exploring, they were the ones who found the gold. What do you think that would have happened? Like that just came to mind. What do you think would have happened?
And the pure demoralization may have prevented any further success or even attempts at trying again. But instead, the English were able to establish multiple booming colonies whilst also bringing an impressive profit for the crown and boasting enormous economic success. Make sure you subscribe to
Interesting. I love this. I love this. This makes total sense. Total sense. And yeah, I'm still gonna say it just like I said before. Like if you notice lots of countries thank Britain today. Thank Great Britain or thank England per se, or thank Great Britain today, because lots of nations that are standing today or that came as a result, like we're talking about the vast majority of some nations, right? Because they came as a result of the influence of the British Empire, Great Britain, and all that, right? It's noble. It's quite a noble achievement. Beautiful one at that. All thanks to the Englishman, right? Beautiful. I love this. And you see, I love history because when you look at it, it's one way or the other. Everything is kind of connected. And there is no way you want to deny the fact that everything is kind of connected. You see, most of the time when they're talking about like formation of many nations, if English is not, or if England or Britain is not involved, French of France is involved, Spain is involved, Germany is involved, Netherlands is involved, Denmark is involved, like many nations that some of them people don't talk about is involved. Many nations, but the vast majority of the one you hear the most is Britain, England, right? And it's noble. It's quite a noble um achievement. I must say, and it's an eye opener. And I always say, like regarding history, the good and they are good and they are bad, right? They are good and they are bad, and sometimes the good most of the time outweighs the bad, but people only dwell on the bad things, and that kind of make it seem like, oh, they didn't do quite well or quite all right, but they did, because I've checked a couple of videos and not one, so many videos, and you see, like in the formation of many nations, Britain is always involved. Why? Just imagine if they were not involved. The formation of many nations, they were involved. Why? I'll tell you. Because they saw the good. I mean, aside what anybody like other people's perspective, they saw the good in nations, and they were like, okay, let's give them their freedom. Let's tap off from this opportunity and give them their freedom. And that's what they did, which makes total sense. It makes total sense. And they are still standing today. When you look at it, just that tiny, small island, But the power they have, they possess, it's you can't compare it. It's immeasurable. But yeah, thank you, Britain. Thank you, England. Beautiful. I love this. I love the information that we got here. Regardless, I always say learn history for your own good, right? Regardless, learn history from a neutral basis instead of learning from the side where you want to look at, oh, I'm supporting from this side, but learn the entirety of history so you understand that, oh, there were good sides and there were bad sides. But the good side outweighed the bad side more, but people only just take more of the bad side and then use it to cloud the good side, so people don't even hear about the good sides of things. Even us as human beings, or us as individuals, we have good days and we have bad days, we have good sides and we have bad sides. And sometimes there are some people that might encounter you and may meet the bad side. There are some people that might encounter you and may meet the good side. So that's how life is. And what this is not to use to compare, but I always say, like, learn history from a neutral basis. You get to understand it deeply. But this makes total sense. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and all that stuff. And until next time, see you in the next video.